this may surprise many of you, I am not from Ghana. Just thought I'd throw that out there. But I have been doing some work in Ghana. I've been there twice, once to do a workshop around dementia, and second to do some instructional things and going around visiting seniors. So that my dissertation work is with Ghanaian immigrant women. So when I first went to Ghana in 2009, and this was the number one question I was asked: are there old people in Ghana? The second one was, where is Ghana? So these are the two questions, and they were asked by a lot of people. I will assure you there are indeed old people in Ghana, and there are some of them. This was at a daycare, an adult daycare center. I'll tell you more about that later on, that we met way out in the country. In answer to the other question, does everybody know where Ghana is? There you go. It's on the continent of Africa, and it's right there. It's a tiny little country in West Africa, and it's bordered on the west by Cote d'Ivoire, which was once called the Ivory Coast, and on the east by Togo, and the north Burkina Faso. Ghana used to be called the Gold Coast, if any of you remember way back, before they changed a lot of names. It gained independence in 1957 from Britain, and it was the first African country to gain independence from European rule. So they're unique in that. Some of the facts, you have a population there of approximately 23 million. So you don't have, it's not an enormously populated country, certainly not like China, you know, it's much smaller. It's growing at about 3% per year. It's relatively a young country, but the older population, as it is in all of the developing and middle-income countries, is growing very fast, actually more rapidly than it's growing in Western countries at this point. There's over 100 ethnic groups living in Ghana, which was a whole lot of fun when I was over there and translating my presentation into 3 languages. It's interesting. Largest groups are the Akan, which is a part of the Ashanti tribe, Iwe, Moldagban, and Ga. And I hope I'm saying these all right. But they will tell you that English is the official language of Ghana, but if you go there, don't count on it. I mean, it is English. Business is conducted in English, but there's over 70 languages and dialects are spoken there. So the African language that's the most popular is Twi. So if you learn a few words like thank you and good morning in Twi, you're probably going to be doing okay. The Ashanti is the largest tribe of the Akan, and it's one of the few societies in Africa that is matrilineal. So that's really different for the way inheritance is divided up. Now, it's a patriarchal society, absolutely, but inheritance is done through the mother. So that causes a lot of different rules that you wouldn't normally think about when you think of Africa. Religion is a very important concept in Ghana and among the Ghanaian migrants, people that you find here. Religion is the center of the community. Their church is the center of the community. Many programs and education is done through the church. Most of the social services is done through the church in Ghana. And so immigrants that are here will usually form in congregations in some Christian church, because 75% of Ghanaians are Christian, 15% are Muslim, which is mainly residing in the north, remainder traditional religions. When I put this together, someone asked me to think about what you might want to know if you were working with immigrants from Ghana. Using the term spirituality, which we use here a lot, may not be the right term, I was told, because the belief in witchcraft, demons, and possession is very strong, is culturally embedded in Ghana. Belief in witches, which is really dangerous for women over there. So I was told not to use the term spirituality because people tend to think of it in terms of the occult. So there was many surprises that I found along the way in Ghana. So I bumbled my way around. Old age in Ghana, traditionally the old are held in high regard, high esteem, and that is the way it's been in Ghana through history. The family has taken care of the elder. The elder socializes the children. And so it's been kind of a reciprocal relationship in the family as it is in, I'm sure it's the same in Korea and China. I thought when you were talking about all the similarities, they were seen as a source of wisdom for the family. They would settle disputes. And it's very much in Ghanaian culture a source of shame to neglect one's family. Neglecting one's family has a rather broad definition, because if you allow a stranger to take care of your family, to provide personal care, can be interpreted as neglecting one's family. So there are many, many rules that you think about. The proverb that's often quoted is, your parents look after you while you are growing your teeth, and you look after them when they're losing theirs. So that is the belief in Ghana, is that everyone takes care of their parents, and it doesn't matter if you are living in the country or not, you are not free from the obligation to care for your parents. But I should mention at this point, the family is another, when we think of family, and we think of nuclear family, that's very different in Ghana. Family includes aunts and uncles in kinship, but cousins. It may even include people who are non-related. So it's difficult. Someone told me there's no word for your mother's sister. It would be called senior sister. So, and this also varies among the different tribes. So the one thing to remember, if someone's from Ghana, there is no one rule for what they're referring to in terms of family, because it really varies a lot. Modern Ghana, the population is about 1.2 million. The elder population is what I'm talking, over the age of 60. By 2050, it's expected to double to 11.8% of the population. That's a really fast growth, what we're looking at in a very short period of time. They have not had time to prepare. And that is true throughout the developing countries. They have not had time to prepare for aging this fast. Ghana is projected to have the fastest growing population of old on the continent of Africa. The young, one of their problems is the young will migrate to urban areas for employment opportunities, leaving the old in the rural areas, which it was primarily the way of life was farming. And with building businesses and like anywhere else, the young go to the cities, and leaving most of the old living in the country. Many leave the country for education, the UK and United States. You've heard of brain drain, the concept that's been around for quite a while. There's another thought about brain drain, that maybe brain circulation now for developing countries. The fact is, it's become very difficult to care for older family members in the traditional way. It's the same as the things you were speaking about. There are fewer young to care for an increasingly old population. And because the economy is bad, people are poor, they are tending to care more for their nuclear family, because it's hard to provide care for the elders living out in the country. Though I don't think, it's very rare that nobody tries to do anything or just abandons the old, but in some cases the old have no one. And we'll talk about cases where they do, and that happens. A big issue, I found this for many old people as I was talking to them, is the case of dementia. Dementia is not understood as an illness, and it's the same with mental illness. It's often seen as a product of witchcraft. This is a human rights issue. Older women are generally the accused, and they may be accused because they're demented, they have mental illness, or because someone doesn't like them and want their house. So there could be any number of reasons. But when someone is seen behaving in a strange way, they can easily be accused of witchcraft and driven out of their town. There's actually sanctuaries in the northern part of Ghana where women have go and they live. And when you're driven out and accused of a witch, you don't go back. So people live there for many, many years, almost scavenging for a living. Men are also accused of witchcraft. However, they can be easily cleansed and returned to society, and there's really not a big deal. So this is primarily a woman thing. If a person has dementia, they may be locked in the home when the family goes to work. There is very rare to have daycare or respite services, or to have stranger come in to take care of the old person. That would be considered neglecting. So the easiest thing is to lock them in their home. They can't wander where people will accuse them of witchcraft, so they keep them locked in the home. The other is to keep a child, which is almost always a female child, home from school to care for the elders, so you have a child in the family who does not get an education. There are some day programs, and Help Age International has branches in different countries. So in Ghana, they're very active, and they have created daycare centers in Accra and Kumasi, which are the two major population centers. Most of the population is in the south and coastal region. So it's very hard for them to go out into the countryside, into the rural areas, and provide any kind of daycare help or any kind of services, because it can take hours to go to go 20 miles, because the roads are really amazingly bad. An interesting thing is that one employment, really ingenious entrepreneurship of people who plant little trees in the potholes on the road, and they stand along the road waiting to be paid for filling the potholes. They filled the potholes, okay, but they'll put a little tree about this big in the center of the road to slow you down so they can ask for money. The government frowns on this, but it is a way to make some money. So you gotta admire the ingenuity, I think. The church provides most services to their congregation. They look after them in terms of providing maybe a senior group within the church on Sunday. We'll check in to see if they have food. We'll check in to see what they need. So the ministers in Ghana, and that's in all of the churches, are very, very busy. They are the social workers. There are two social work schools in Ghana. Most of the social work majors are in child welfare, because that's what the government has provided in the system, is to look after health and poverty programs and education programs, the same as money that goes in from the NGOs. That's where most of the money has flowed. The government is very aware of what's coming and are seeking solutions. They have created health programs for the old, mostly under the advocacy work of Help Age Ghana. This demanded this, and the old, who are very good advocates for themselves. And they partner with the churches to put on programs on heart disease and nutrition and diabetes. And they have begun to talk about dementia and to send people from their churches to Germany, to the UK, to learn about, and also to the US, which is how I got involved with Ghana in the first place. Again, Help Age Ghana is an absolutely amazing organization. They have done a lot to cause a pension to be created in Ghana, which until recently was only covered people who happened to work for the government, leaving most of the population without anything. And retirement is not a concept that Ghanaians understand. You work until you can't, your family takes care of you. If you have no family, you beg. You beg on the street. You don't retire. You cook rice and sell rice. You do whatever you can. And Ghanaians work very hard to bring in and into, if they're older and living with a child, to contribute to the family. It's a source of pride. So I mentioned Alzheimer's Disease International is also closely aligned with Help Age Ghana, and they are doing what they can to promote dementia awareness. Very aware of the abuse of women and the accusations of witchcraft. There are some adult day programs in mostly the urban areas, but the picture of all those folks in the beginning is in a little town called Odad, which is up in the mountains, and a Presbyterian minister, a woman, went back there. She was Ghanaian, and they gave her a church and saw all the old people left alone during the day to fend for themselves, and had been living in the United States, I think in Texas, and seeing day programs here, and said, we need a day program. The only building was a church. Well, pews are movable. So by day, she has created a day program, and she has a volunteer driver that goes around and brings all the old people in. And they do games just like they do here. They provide a meal that's all done voluntarily. This is done on a shoestring, which is amazing. There's no funding, there's no government funding. There's a little bit from mission work, some donations. People offer what little food they have. So that was a real treat to go and see these folks. It's quite a program, and the Presbyterian Church of Ghana that I worked with is also trying to replicate that in other areas. Ghanaian migrants in the United States, people, are there many? Not in the long term, there's not a whole lot, but in this area, most of the Ghanaian residents live in New York State, which is pretty interesting. There's about 155,000 Ghanaian immigrants residing in the U.S. 80,000 more that are born here in the U.S. have at least one parent that was born in Ghana. Largest number live in New York State, followed by Washington, D.C. and the surrounding area. About 35,000 Ghanaians live in New York State. Most in the metro area, but there is a strong concentration around Albany. Many of you may meet working in healthcare as CNAs. We have a lot, or in hospitals as aides, or in housekeeping. The really interesting thing is a lot of them come as nurses in Ghana, and their credentials aren't recognized, and they can't afford to go through the schooling process to have that. That is a problem that's not recognized. We talked about, I mentioned brain drain before, which is what we usually think of young people leaving nations. And right now, and in a lot of developing countries, if you dig a little farther, you'll find that migration is encouraged by the government and encouraged by families as a strategy for alleviating poverty. Because people who come to the US, to the UK, make money that they send back to Ghana in an astonishing amount. We don't think of that. As a matter of fact, countries are looking at what they call remittances, which is the money that's sent back home by the migrant as a source of development within their country. Here's some Ghanaian etiquette you should know. This is important. Do not give someone anything with your left hand. Don't do it. Not polite. Two hands if you must, but don't hand anybody anything with your left hand. Anybody know why?
Yeah. Hygiene.
Yeah, personal care. That's your hand for personal care. Toilet paper is not a given in Ghana. We had to carry our own with us. Time is a flexible concept in Ghana. And if anyone who's ever worked with Ghanaians know this. Ghanaians will not be on time for dinner. Ghanaians will not be on time for events, and probably not for business meetings, and appointments might or might not happen. It's more important to a Ghanaian to say hello to a neighbor and have a conversation than it is to be on time. Ghanaians don't care if you're late for dinner. They're only happy that you came. And this is how it's been explained to me. So if you go in with a typically American attitude, waiting for the meeting to start, you are going to be very frustrated and disappointed. You will learn to be patient if you are going to work with Ghanaians. Offer refreshments at any meeting. Every place we went, no matter how poor anyone was, someone came out with refreshments. Always bottled water. Coke is very popular in Ghana, which is way better than ours because it's made with real sugar. Just saying, love their Coke. Pleasantries must be exchanged before business. You cannot have a Ghanaian come in and sit down with you and you just start talking about business, which is what we're used to doing. That's rude, it's impolite, and that is one of the things that make them wonder about our sanity. Because we don't ask, how is your family? How are you? How is your child in school? Are you feeling well? You may spend most of the meeting exchanging pleasantries and get nothing done except scheduling the next meeting. Because then they've learned to trust, and so this is very important. But it's frustrating if you're not used to that. When you're greeting someone, greet the eldest person first, as a sign of respect for the elder. If it's a choice between the male or the female, you're probably going to greet the male first, because he's probably the head of the family. Handshake with eye contact is with a smile, always with a smile. Gifts are important. Exchanging of gifts, even if they're just small gifts, if you go to visit, it's considered polite to bring a gift. That's true in Korea, is it not? Because I had people from Korea come and visit me and they brought a gift. It's not common in our culture, but it is in Ghana. If you can't think of anything, smile, okay? Just smile and not, because they'll forgive you anything because you're not of their culture. Ghanaians are extremely hospitable people. It's very strange because I play with people now in America. If you walk past someone, look them in the eye and smile, a stranger, and watch how uncomfortable they get. I just do it for fun. You know, because in Ghana, you do not pass someone on the street without making eye contact and smiling, exchanging a greeting. Good morning, how are you? Total strangers. Extremely rude. not to make eye contact. So that's what I learned very definitely. It's not nice to point. There's a lot of things because it depends on what part of Ghana you're in. Because different tribes, different customs. But if you're smiling, and that little girl was from an orphanage that we met that followed us all around. She was an absolute doll. So, Madasi, that's the other word you need to learn is thank you. In Twi. This lady has since passed now, but she was 103 years old when she passed. She's about 100 years old in that picture. She was in the daycare up in Oda. So I will answer questions with my friends here. Thanks.